מסכת בבא מציעה דף קט. נו משנה, המקבל שדה מחברו לשנים מועטות, לא יזרענה פשתן, ואין לו בקורות שקמה. קיבלה המנו ל7 שנים, שנה ראשונה יזרענה פשתן, ויש לו בקורות שקמה. Someone who is working on someone else's field as a tenant farmer, and he's only working there. The deal is he's going to be using that field for just a few years, anything less than 7 years. He may not plant flax in it because flax weakens the soil, and then the tenant farmer will come, he'll take his flax, he'll get a lot of benefit, but it's not fair to the owner who's going to be left with a field that is very weak. And he also cannot take the branches of sycamore trees. Here's a beautiful sycamore tree. They grow very big and they're good. The fruits are not really edible, but rather their wood is very valuable because they are very big and they can be used as building material. So really the fruit of the sycamore tree is the wood itself. You'll wait till it grows sufficiently and then cut it down. Now, since this tenant farmer, although, yes, he gets to take any of the fruit that grows in the field, and the wood of the sycamore tree is its fruit, but it takes a long time for it to regrow. And therefore, if he is a tenant farmer only for 1, 2, up to 6 years, then that's not enough time for it to regrow, and he cannot take it because he can't take from the principal. However, as long as the tenant farmer contract is for 7 years or more, in that case, the tenant can plant flax the first year because, okay, it's true, the land will weaken, but then over the next few years, it will gain back its strength, and he'll be able to give it back to the owner with strength. And also he can cut down beams from the sycamore tree because by the time he finishes at the end of 7 years, the sycamore tree will have regrown. Oh, good, that's the basic principle. Amar Abaye, bekorot shikma en lo, bishpach shikma yesh lo. Verava amar, afilu bishpach shikma name en lo. We have a machloket about what happens if it's less than 7 years. So let's say it's just 1 or a couple of years. Abaye says that it's true that the tenant farmer cannot cut down branches from the sycamore tree, but he can benefit, he can get paid for the enhancement of the sycamore tree. In other words, when he takes possession of the field at the beginning of their contract, the sycamore tree is smaller and worth, let's say, $200. And then, while he's there for, let's say, 2 years. And every year it grows a little more, and when he finishes, now the sycamore tree is worth $300. So it went up in value $100 while he was there using the field. So he can come and say at the end, listen, it's true, I enjoyed the produce of whatever he planted there, but also while I was here, the field got more expensive because the sycamore trees are now worth more than they were before, so he can ask to get paid for that enhancement. But Rava disagrees and says, no, he doesn't get anything. Not only can he not cut down the pieces of the sycamore tree, he does not have a right to the enhancement either. The sycamore that grows on its own, it's like just part of the land, and not considered anything that he should get paid for. All right, that's the 2 opinions. Now we're going to have a couple of challenges against Rava, who says that he does not get paid anything at all. Metibe. The Baraita is very short and not ambiguous. It says someone who receives a field as a tenant farmer, and the time is up. That's it. It was for however long it was, 2 years, and now it's time for him to leave. So we make an appraisal for him, and then he'll get paid that amount of the appraisal. So what are they appraising? My love, shamin lo bishbach shikma, is it not that they're appraising the enhancement to sycamore tree or other trees that grow more, and the tenant farmer should get the enhancement? That goes against Rava. And we answer, lo, shamin lo yarka v'silka. No, we're evaluating the value of the vegetables and beets that he left in the field. How much are they worth? Those are fruits of the field, so the tenant farmer should get them. and if they're left in the field, he deserves to get paid for them. We ask, Yarka v'silka na'akor v'nishkol. Wait, if it's vegetables and beets, so let the tenant farmer uproot them and take it with him. He's supposed to take it with him and go and sell them. And we answer, B'dela mata yomad shuka. The market day had not yet arrived, and therefore he doesn't want to uproot and take them. And once you uproot them, then they're going to start rotting. He has to move them, he has to store them, and he can't sell them yet because the market day is still a while away. So he leaves it there in the field, and he tells the owner, hey, let's appraise how much these beets and vegetables are worth. Pay me that amount, and then you keep them and you sell them. Okay, so that's how we solve the problem, where this baraita is not talking about growth of trees, but rather vegetables. And next challenge, also against Rava, Tashema. Hamkabel sadeh mechavero v'gia shebi'it shamin lo. Shebi'it mika mafke'a ar'a. So this baraita says that someone who receives a field as a tenant farmer, and the shebi'it comes, the seventh year comes, we make an appraisal. So first we have to clarify what this baraita is talking about before we can ask the question. So we say, shevi'it, does that remove him from his contract? That's not true. Let's say he contracts it for several years and there's a shevi'it a year in the middle. It's true, he can't plant things during that year. He can't work the ground, but he doesn't stop being a tenant farmer. So why should you appraise something and give it to him? He just continues his contract. Okay, it must be, it's not Shavi'it, but rather we got mixed up. It really should say Yovel. And on the Yovel, then the land goes back to its original owner. And so we have to make an evaluation of the enhancement of the field and give it to the tenant farmer. We ask further, Vakate Yovel mimafka'a kablanut lismitut amar rachamana. Hold on, Yovel also does not stop a contract because the Torah says the land should not be sold lismitut permanently. So therefore, only land that without the Yovel would be sold permanently, meaning if I have ancestral land, if I sell it, and then if I don't get it back in the Yovel, it will be sold permanently. That's where the Yovel applies and says, no, it goes back to its ancestral owner. But if it's a temporary deal anyway, a temporary rental or a contract, a tenant farmer or a sharecropper, that's only for a certain amount of time, then Yovel does not return that land to its original owner. And therefore, it doesn't make sense that it would be Yovel either. Okay, we have to change another word, and it's not hamikabel, someone who is a contractor, but rather halokech, someone who buys. Okay, someone who buys a field from someone else, and Yovel comes, and now it's going to revert back to its original owner. We make an evaluation. Okay, what's the evaluation? It must be of sycamore trees or other trees that grow. And you say, listen, I bought this field a while ago, and okay, you get it back. That's the law of Yovel. The Torah says so. However, while it was under while I had it, it was enhanced this much. So the original owner has to pay that buyer a certain amount. So that shows that you do have to pay for the growth of sycamore trees. And maybe you'll say, oh no, here also the evaluation is not of the growth of the trees, but rather of vegetables and beets that were left on the ground, and also the market day didn't come yet, and the land is reverting back. Oh, pay me for the vegetables that are in the ground. No, that doesn't make sense because Yovel hefkerahu. Yovel is the same law as Shavi'it, and you cannot take, it's all hefker. Anyone can come and take those vegetables, and so he can't take those vegetables with him, and he can't demand payment for them either because they're not his in that year. So therefore, it wouldn't make sense to have to evaluate the vegetables that are in the ground that are ownerless. So it must be that we are in fact talking about the enhancement to the trees, including sycamore trees. And this is a challenge to Rava, who said that he said that in a tenant farmer, a tenant farmer cannot collect the enhancement. Here it's talking about a sale, but right now we're assuming it'll be the same law. Now, Rava didn't have an answer to this, but Abaye, his colleague who argued with him, helped Rava out. Another good example of colleagues helping each other. Even the very colleague who is his disputant says, I have an answer for the other side. Shaneh hatam damar kera v'yasa mimkar bayit mimkar chozer shebach eno chozer. No, the Yovel law is different because the pasuk specifically says that the sale of the house goes to its original owner during the Yovel year. So we learn only the sale of the house, but enhancement does not return. So that means that enhancement remains with the buyer. And that's why the buyer in this case, yes, in fact, we do make an evaluation. How much did the trees grow? And the ancestral owner has to pay that buyer for enhancement. But that's a special law regarding Yovel because the pasuk says so, but we cannot learn from that to other cases. But now we ask, V'nigmar mineh, why not? Why don't we have a binyan av and say, here, this is the paradigm, and we can learn from the case of Yovel to all other cases that they're also, if one is returning a field, that you have to evaluate the enhancement of the trees and get reimbursed for it. No, that's different because it's a sale. It's a full sale. When I buy an ancestral field in the middle, right? You sell me your ancestral field in the middle of the Yovel, in the 25th year. So that's a full sale. It's not like a lease for 25 years. It's a full sale. And then the Yovel comes and it's like the release of the king. If the king one day, anytime, says, listen, all land, it goes to this guy, goes back to the original. The king has full right to decide where land goes. And so it's a full sale before that, and now the land reverts because the king, in this case the Torah, Hashem says, it goes back. But because it was a full sale, therefore, since I owned it during those years and the trees grew, I deserve to get paid for that enhancement. That's a sale. Whereas a tenant farmer never owns the land and therefore has no right to the enhancement. And so Rava can answer that there is a fundamental distinction between these two. You see, this is helpful because we originally thought that the language was in fact hamekabel as a tenant farmer, and then it would be a difficult question. But we say the Braita doesn't make sense in that as a tenant farmer. It only makes sense as someone who's buying it. And now we clarify that someone buying it, even though it will go back in the Yovel, is a complete sale. And that's why the buyer deserves to retain the enhancement, but a renter does not. Rav Papa kabil al-ar'a le'aspasta. Now we have a story about Rav Papa. He got land as a contractor, and he's going to grow hay on it to feed animals. Kadhu ba taleh. While he's there, some palm trees sprouted in the ground. Oh, these are good. These are valuable. So now Rava's there for however many years he is. Kiksal kas mistalek amar lehu habu li shebacha. When he's leaving, he tells the landowner, I want the enhancement of the field. When I started, these palm trees weren't there. Now they are there. So the tree's worth $500 more. Pay me that amount. Amar le Rav Shisha bered Rav Idi Rav Papa ele me'ata dikla ve'alim hachinami deba'e mor shebache. However, Rav Shisha, the son of Rav Idi, told Rav Papa, wait, according to you, let's say there already was a tree there when you started, and the tree got bigger, grew thicker while you were there. Would you think you would also deserve to get paid for that enhancement? Amar le hatam lavadata dehachi nachit. It says, no, in that case, I would agree that you wouldn't have to, because a person that comes and takes the land as a tenant farmer, he has in mind that he's going to grow things and he's going to take whatever grows. But the trees that are already there, the fact that they grow bigger, he doesn't have that in mind that he wants to benefit from that. But these palm trees were not there at all before. So I had in mind, I want to take my share of anything that grows. And that will include hay. And if suddenly a palm tree grows that wasn't there before, well then I should take my share of it. Keman, who does Rav Papa follow? Abaye amar bishpach shikma yesh lo. Seems that he follows Abaye that says that enhancement to trees that are there, he takes it, and that's why the enhancement to these palm trees, he can take it. Does this go against Rava? Rava could also explain it, that in a normal case, when the sycamore tree is already there and that it grows bigger, there's no loss to the tenant farmer, because the tenant farmer, when he got it, there was a certain amount of empty land that he's going to plant on and benefit from whatever grows. And the trees that are already there and aren't taking anything away. But here, where the land was empty when he started, and then these palm trees sprouted, and now they're in his way. He can't plant hay in all the spots where there are palm trees. So since there's a loss to the things that he wanted to grow on it, so he deserves to get paid for the sprouting of the palm trees that are there. And even Rava would agree with that. Now, based on that, Rav Shesha said to Rav Papa, what is your loss? Yadad aspasta, shekol yadad aspata vezil. Your loss is the space of where those palm trees are. How much is that space, right? Okay, I will measure it. You know what? Okay, take that amount of hay. What is that, a handful? And that's it, go. You don't deserve the value of the palm tree, which would be much more, because you're only claiming that you lost out on the space for hay. Okay, take that little bit of hay, and that's it. You're not getting paid for the value of the palm tree. However, Rav Papa said, oh no, I could have grown garden saffron there, which is very expensive, and not necessarily hay, right? I could have planted whatever I wanted there, and so therefore I want to get paid more. And so Rav Shisha says, I see, you wanted to put saffron there and then you were going to take it with you. Now you revealed, this was a entrapment question. You revealed now that those sycamore trees that are there, it's not like you put them there, you wanted them there to enhance the field. Whatever you would have put there would have been something that you would have taken with you. So therefore, you can get paid for the value of the wood alone, not the value of the enhancement of the field because of these palm trees, which is a lot more. The wood alone, okay, how much wood is there? It's just a few dollars. Now, the enhancement of having a tree there that's growing and growing, that is worth a lot of money. So you see, you don't care about the tree being there because your own example was, I could have put saffron there, something that you would take with you. So therefore, let's consider this palm tree for its value as burning wood, and then just take that value, which is also very little, and he denied that he can get the amount of the enhancement of the tree. Another story. Rabbi bar Abaye kabil ad hader le meshunita. Rabbi, he got a field and he put a fence, a mound of earth as a border around it. Katchu be zeradata, and then trees sprouted in that area. So now, when the contract was over, he said, give me the enhancement of the field for those trees that sprouted on the field that you're getting. Amar Rav Papi, mishum da'atitu mulae amritu mile mulyata. Rav Papi told Rabbi Vai, because you come from a sad situation, you said sad words. What he means by this is that Rabbi Vai was from the family of Eli HaKohen, the family was cursed with short life, and therefore because you come from a family of that's unfortunate, you gave also unfortunate arguments, and what you said doesn't make sense. Okay, and ad hominem attack. But let's see what the content of his challenge is. Even in the previous story, we saw that Rav Papa says, I deserve to get paid for the space of where these palm trees are because I could have planted something else there. And he says, okay, fine, you can get paid only because you lost out on that space, so you can get paid from something for what might have grown in that space, get paid the value of the wood. But that's only if the tree grows in the middle of the field where you are planting stuff. In this case, those trees grew on the mounds at the border where you weren't planting anything anyway. That was just a mound to mark the border. And therefore, you didn't lose out anything and you don't deserve to get paid anything at all. Rav Yosef, Havaleahu Shatla. Now Rav Yosef had a planter person who was planting for him. This is kind of like a sharecropper, except that sharecropper usually would take a third and the owner takes 2/3. In the case of a planter, it was half-half. Furthermore, a planter is a more long-term. It might be like forever, right? You're the guy and you take care of it, whereas a sharecropper is usually only for a few years. Furthermore, a planter generally takes a barren field and he puts enhancement into it. So he's there for the long term, putting investment into it, taking more out, becomes more like a partner than just a sharecropper. But in a lot of ways, it's the same as a sharecropper. So Rav Yosef had a planter guy, Shatala, Shecheb Ushbak Chamisha Chanvata. And he died. He had 5 son-in-laws. So now Rav Yosef is like, I was happy to deal with this guy, but now I have to deal with 5 sons-in-law who each are going to be, arguing. No, you do this, I do that. Amad ad ha'ida nachad hashta chamisha. Until now I had to deal with one person. Now I have to deal with 5 people. Ad ha'ida na lahavu samchu ad hadeh v'la mifsedu li. Hashta chamisha samchu ad hadeh mifsedu li. Until now, I didn't have to I didn't have 5 people to rely on, and I had no loss. But now there's 5 people, and each one is going to rely on the other. Oh, you're going to plant it. I'm going to play. I thought he did it, and then I'm going to have a loss in the end. Amar lehu ish shaklitu shebachaychu umistalikitu mutaviim la misalekna lechu bela shebachad. Rav Yosef says, listen, I want out. All right, we're ending this contract. If you want, I'll give you the enhancement of the field, right, that your father-in-law had put into the field for a certain amount. Take the money and get out of here. And if you don't agree to that, then I'm kicking you out anyway, and I won't pay you anything. That's that he's threatening them. And Rav Yosef says, I have precedent for kicking you out without giving you $1. And the precedent is from, it's interesting that he's either Rav Yehuda said, or Rav Huna said, or Rav Nachman said it. When you have 3 different trade-ins like this, it's like if someone told you this, you'd say, well, you don't even know who said it? So it sounds like this tradition might be a little shaky, as we'll see in a second. But anyway, the tradition says that if you have a planter and he dies, then the heirs can be removed and you don't have to pay them anything at all. So he's using that threat to get them out. The Gemara itself says, "Velav milatahi," but that's not actually the halacha. And some Rishonim say, actually, Rav Yehuda didn't necessarily say this. In fact, we don't know who said it. So he might have been quoting something, but not quoting it fully. The point is, he wanted them out. This is not actually the halacha, but is something that Rav Yosef is quoting to try to get them out. Hahu shatala damalehu imafsadina misalakna. Ifsid. Now, you had a planter. He said to the owner, right, come and hire me. I'll be a good planter. I'll tell you what. If I cause a loss to your vineyard and ruin the plants, I'll leave, right? I'll get out of here. I'll get out of your hair. So, in the end, he had a loss. Amar Rav Yehuda, mistalek bela shebacha. Rav Yehuda said, you can kick him out and you don't have to pay him anything. This is Rav Yehuda. This might be the Rav Yehuda that he's referring to. See, Rav Yehuda might have actually said this in a particular case like this, where the planter said, if I lose, I will get out. And so if he says I'll leave, then he doesn't get enhancement. So Rav Yosef might have been quoting this, but generalizing it to other cases. Anyway, Rav Kana amar mistalek v'shakil shibcha. Rav Kana agrees that he has to leave. Either way, he said I'm going to leave. So the contract is ended. But Rav Kana says he deserves enhancement. There was a loss. He destroyed the vines and stuff, but he also in some other way did have an enhancement. So Rav Kana said, whatever grew on the land and was enhanced during his time, he does get paid for. However, even Rav Kana agrees that if he said, if I have a loss, then I will leave and I'll forego any enhancement, then he doesn't get any enhancement at all. It depends if he actually said that out loud. But if he didn't say that, then he gets enhancement. Rava disagrees. Rava amar asmachtahi v'asmachta la kanya. If he says, I'll go without any enhancement, then that's just something that he doesn't really mean. He's just trying to convince the guy, hire me, let me be the planter for you, and if there's a loss, I'll leave. That part, we believe him. That's true, that he has to leave, that he is committed to. But is he going to forego his enhancement? Rava says, even if he says, I'll forego my enhancement, he was just saying that, like, I'll give you $1 million, but he doesn't actually forego the enhancement. Challenge to Rava. How come in the case of above he says it's asmachta and he does not get paid the enhancement? However, in the Mishnah that we saw earlier, if a sharecropper says, listen, if I leave it fallow and don't work it, then I will pay you from the best of my produce that which we estimate this land would have produced. So how come in that case he does have to pay, and you don't say that's an asmachta, Rava, but Rava here in this case you say, even though he says, listen, if there's a loss, then I won't take the enhancement, that this is asmachta, and he gets the enhancement anyway. What's the difference? And we answer, Hatam mai dafsid meshalem, hacha mai dafsid menakin le ve'idach yabinan le. In the case of that Mishnah earlier, he is paying for that which he caused a loss for. He took this land, he didn't work it, caused the owner a loss. So if you cause someone a loss, of course you have to pay. He was lazy and negligent, so yes, certainly has to pay for the loss. However, in this case, it's true there was a loss, but there was also a gain, and so we'll deduct the loss from the gain, and the rest of the gain we should give him. Why should he not get the rest of the gain that is rightfully coming to him? It doesn't make any sense not to give it to him. He deserves it, and therefore we assume that when he said, "I won't take $1," of course, you still have to pay him the regular payment that he deserves. Runya shatala de Ravina hava. Runya was a planter for Ravina. Afsid salike. He lost. He ruined the vineyard. He lost money, and Ravina kicked him out, fired him. Ata lekamed Rava. Amar le chazimor maika avid li. Runya came to Rava and says, look what he did. He kicked me off of his land. I'm his planter. Amar le shapir abid. Rava says, it's a good thing he did that, right? Rava agrees that, of course, everyone agrees that if you do a bad job, then you lose your right to be there and you get kicked off. Amar le ha lo hitrabi. But he didn't give me a warning before and say, listen, don't do that again. If you do that again, then I'll kick you off. He didn't give me a warning. Amar le la sedicha latrot. Rava le ta'amed. Amar Rava. Me makre dardeke shetala tabacha ve'umana. And so Rava says he doesn't have to give you a warning. And Rava is consistent with what he said elsewhere, because he said that a teacher of school children, or a planter, that's you, and a ritual slaughterer and a bloodletter, b'safad mata, and the town scribe, kulan kimutarin v'omdim dameh. It's like they're already forewarned. In all these cases, if they mess up, then they get fired, and you don't get a second chance. Tabach, I bring my animal to the butcher. Say, can you slaughter it? He messes up. What? So now he can't redo it, and therefore they don't get a chance to redo it and a warning. But rather, whatever loss that they had, it will be deducted from their wages. And the general rule is, any loss that you cannot recover, you can't do it again, that's the same as forewarned. You have to make sure you're a bloodletter. Make sure to do it right the first time. Otherwise, if there is a loss, it will be deducted. Okay. Hahu shatala damar lehu. Habu li shebachai. Debene lemasak lad'ad Yisrael. There was a planter who's expected to be there long term, maybe forever. But then one day he says, I want to make aliyah. Give me the enhancement to the field that I made. We started off with a barren field, and I planted, let's say, for the sake of this case, to make it easy, that he planted 6 vines, and they're growing, and they're doing well, and they're splitting the produce half-half. That's the normal thing, and the expectation was he would be there for a long time. But, okay, he wants to make aliyah. It's very nice. So he says, pay me the enhancement my share of it, right, which is half. That would be 3 vines, and I'm going to go. So Rapapa Bar Shemuel was the judge, and he said to the landowner, give him the enhancement of the field. Now, we thought he meant the entire enhancement, which is 6 vines. I know the planter contributed toward the enhancement, but the land itself had no contribution. Doesn't the landowner deserve something? The Papa says, that's what I meant. I meant half. 3 for the landowner, and pay the other guy for 3, the vines, and he will take that money, make aliyah, and now you will own all the vines. So the landowner says, this is not fair. Until now, the owner, that's me, would get half, and the planter would get half, and he did all the work. That's part of the deal. And so I would get half without having to pay any worker. But now that he left, and now I have to pay him for 3 vines, and I'm now going to have to hire a sharecropper. Sharecropper generally gets a third. I'm going to have to give him a third, meaning whatever 2 of the vines produce. And so now I'm paying for 3, and I'm going to lose out on the produce of 2, and so I am losing out. It's not fair. Our deal was he's going to be my planter forever, and now he's taking the value of 3 vines, leaving. I have to pay that out of pocket, and I'm going to have to pay a sharecropper for the value of 2 vines, and so he's causing me a loss. It's not fair. The Papa says, you have a good point. What I meant when I said give him his share, he doesn't deserve half of them. He deserves a quarter of them. Now, we're going to see 2 different ways of calculating what a quarter means. Rav Asher at first proposed that when we say a quarter, it means a sixth. How could a quarter mean a sixth? As follows. You have 6 vines altogether. The owner is going to have to hire a sharecropper and give the sharecropper the produce of 2 of the vines, so he won't have access to that produce. But he does have 4. Now, of those 4, let's take a quarter of them. A quarter of 4 is 1. So the homeowner only has to pay the planter 1 vine. That's it. That's all you get. You take the value of 1 vine and go to Israel, and I keep all the rest. And that way, it will be even. It'll be fair. How is that fair? Because after he pays 1, so he's out of pocket 1 vine that he paid to the planter, and the planter left. And then he has to pay the value of 2 vines, the produce of 2 vines, to the sharecropper. So the landowner will be left with 3, which is exactly what he had before. So in order to make it fair, he doesn't pay the planter 3, and then he's only gonna, if he gives him 3, then he's gonna have only 3 left, and he has to give 1 of those to the sharecropper. He's gonna be left with 2, which is not fair. And so that's what when we mean a quarter, it means a quarter of the 4 that remain after paying 2 to the sharecropper. And this is how we explain it. Amar Rab min Yomi bered Rab Nachmuni Nachumi ba'atra de shekel shatala palga ve'arisa tilta. If you're in a place where the planter gets half and a sharecropper gets a third, of course, if these numbers are different, then you have to recalculate. So the planter who wants to leave, so we give him enhancement and we let him leave, but we do so in a way that there will not be any loss to the homeowner. It's not fair that the homeowner would have to pay for 3 out of pocket and only then have 3 produce and have to give some to a sharecropper. No, this makes sense if he pays 1 to the planter and leaves. So okay, he's 1 out of pocket. 2 that remain from that planter's share will now go to a sharecropper, and he remains with the produce of 3 which he had before, and that would make sense. So if we say that a quarter means a sixth of the total, means one vine, then everything works out. But if you say a quarter literally of all 6, a quarter of 6 is 1.5. So if the homeowner would have to pay 1.5 vines to the planter, well then he would be losing out a 1/12, right? Because we just said if giving him 1 is fair, then giving another half is going to be a half out of 6 is 1/12 of an overpayment that he's going to have to eat that loss, and that would not be fair. So that's what Rav Asher thought to say. But now Rav Acha is going to brilliantly come up with a different way of thinking about this and calculating. The sharecropper, the planter can have the following valid claim. Ant minatadi la chable le'arisa. V'ana minatadi li ma'deba'ena abidna be. He says, you, from your share, you give to the sharecropper, and I, from my share, I will do whatever I want with it. Here's how we're going to think of it now. In this case, he's saying, I want a quarter of the total, 6, which is 1.5. So according to this, the homeowner has to pay 1.5 vines to the planter. And he takes that money and he goes away. Then the homeowner is left with 4.5. Now, of that 4.5, he's going to have to hire someone, a sharecropper, to plant them. So he's going to have to pay the sharecropper a third. A third of 4.5 is 1.5. So the sharecropper will get 1.5, the produce of 1.5 vines, and the homeowner will keep 3, which is exactly what he had before. So the homeowner is made whole. And the other 1.5 that he paid, so he paid that out of pocket, so now he gets that, that he could do whatever he wants with. I mean, here it says that the planter says, I'll do whatever I want with it, but really he wants to sell the whole thing because he's leaving. And now the homeowner can do whatever he wants. He can just leave it and not hire anybody, or he can hire someone for a third of that amount, which would be half. And then he would take the other 1, and he could totally do that. But he doesn't have to pay the planter for hiring a sharecropper to work on the planter's share of it, and therefore the planter deserves 1.5, which is really quite a brilliant new way of thinking about it and giving him a little more. Amar ki matet lishchitat kodashim ta akvakshi li. Rav Asher was so impressed with Rav Acha's calculation here. He says, listen, when we get to Masechet Zevachim, come and ask me this difficult question. Masechet Zevachim, which they call Shechitat Kodashim, is actually going to be next. We're in the middle of Nizikin now. And Be'ezrat Hashem, in some months from now, we'll be up to Kodashim. And then we'll see what he means when he says that there's difficult questions like this are going to come up there. And so Rav Asher obviously is very impressed with Rav Acha's challenge. Gufa. Amar Rav min Yomi bered Rav Nachumi batra de shekel shetala palga varisa tilta hai shetala de be'elis istaluke yabinan le shebacheu mesalikinan nekihechi de la lifsud bala bayit. Returning to the statement of Rav min Yomi, the son of Rav Nachumi, who said that if you're in a place where planters get half and sharecroppers get a third, then the planter who wants to leave, we give him the enhancement to his field, right? Whatever percentage will make sense, and we let him leave, but we calculate it in such a way that the homeowner should not suffer any loss. That's the principle, and we just saw 2 different ways of calculating how to apply that principle. All right, Amar Rav min Yomi bered Rav Nachumi kofa saba palga shatfa nahara rib'a. So the same Rav min Yomi added that if you have an old vine, that's it. It lasted, vines have a certain life of 5 years, and then that's it. They die. And so if it dies a natural death, it ran its course, then they split it half-half. Just like produce, the grapes that it produces, they split half-half, and this is a natural end to the vine, so they also split the wood half-half. However, if it ends unexpectedly, a river comes and floods the vineyard and ruins those vines, in that case, the planter only gets a quarter and not the entire thing, because this is equivalent to the planter leaving early. It's the same thing, either if the planter leaves early or if the vine itself dies early because of an unexpected event, then you do the same calculation of a quarter. And again, here the quarter would be based on the two different calculations that we saw. ההוא גברה דמשכין פרדיסה לחברה לעשר שנים וקש לחמש שנים. אביי אמר פרה הווה, רבא אמר קרנה הווה, וילקח בו קרקע והוא אוכל פירות. There was a man who mortgaged his vineyard to a creditor. He owed him a certain amount of money, and so he said, here, take my vineyard and you can enjoy the produce for the next 10 years and that will pay off the loan. Now, these vines, they died a natural death after 5 years. And so the question is, who deserves to take the wood value of those vines? Abaye says we consider the wood of the vines to be produce, and therefore the creditor, who's working just like he takes all of the produce, the grapes, so he takes all of the wood. And Rava, however, said, no, we consider the vines themselves to be part of the principal. And therefore, what do you do with principal? Well, the principal belongs to the owner of it, but anything that the principal produces goes to the creditor. So here's what you have to do. You have to sell the wood, and you have to use the wood to buy a little bit of more land, and then whatever that land grows will go to the creditor, and the land itself will remain the property of the owner of the rest of the land. So that's the basic machloket. Abaye considers the wood to be produce, and Rava considers it to be principal. Now we have a challenge against Abaye. Metibe yavash hailan oniksa shenehem asurim bo. Braita says that if you have a tree that dried up or was chopped down, we're going to discuss whether these were a natural end or unnatural. Neither of them can take it totally. That wouldn't be fair. Rather, you have to sell that wood as a fuel or building material, and with the proceeds, you buy more land. And then the creditor can take the produce, and then when he's all paid up, then the land itself goes back to the owner. So you see, this is a good proof for Rava that we consider the wood to be principal and a challenge to Abaye. Now this challenge is based on the assumption that it's a natural end. And so we can see that because we're saying it dried out the same as being cut down. Just like being cut down would be at its natural end. Why would you cut down a fruit tree that is still producing? You'd only cut it down when it dies. So too, when it says dries out, it means it reached its natural death. And therefore, this would be a challenge to Abaye, who said his law when it's a natural death. And see, this Baraita says that you buy land and the creditor can enjoy the produce. You see that you're treating it as principal challenge to Abaye. Abaye can answer, Lo nixas dumya de yavash. Ma yavash belo zemano, af nixas belo zemano. No, we can say the other way around, that cut down is similar to dried out. Just like dried out, and unnaturally, before its time, it somehow dried out. So too, it got chopped down by mistake, or someone came and chopped it down before its time. And since it's unnatural, Abaye would agree that, in that case, we consider it principal, and you have to buy new land, and only gets the produce of that new land that they buy. Last challenge also against Abaye. Tashema naflu la gefanim vezetim zekenim. Yemachru la'esim v'lakach behem karka v'hu ochel perot. The law of a married couple is that any land that the woman brings into the marriage, the husband can enjoy the produce while they're married, but the principal she keeps and she takes out at the end of the marriage. So too, while they're married, if she gets an inheritance of some vines, and the vines get old and they die a natural death, then you sell the wood of the vines and you have to buy land, and then the husband can eat the produce of that land. So what do you see here? That this is a proof for Rava, that we treat it like principle and a challenge to Abaye. And so we have two answers. Ema vihizkinu. Maybe when it says zikenim, it doesn't mean that it was a natural end, but they became very old quickly, unnaturally. And Abaye agrees that if it's an unnatural death, then it's considered principal. Or we can say that case is where she acquired inheritance of these vines that were in a different field, not a field that she owned. And therefore, if, since she doesn't own the field, if you just sell off the wood, then she'd be left with nothing. And that's not fair. You can't have a situation where the wife inherits something, and if you consider it all produce and it all goes to the husband, then the husband just takes it all and she is left with nothing, but she got an inheritance. She deserves to take something out of it. So any case where the everything would be consumed entirely, there we have to treat it like principal, and that's why you sell it, you buy land, and then he can enjoy the produce of that land, but she, at the end, will get the original value of her inheritance. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.